After 27 years of corporate clinical consulting with organizations around the world after major disasters and crises, we've made an interesting discovery. In that, in the range of about 20% of those organizations existing in the community prior to the event, in fact, end up having to close their doors permanently. Another 20%, in fact, will sustain themselves for another year or two before they too have to close their businesses. It's only 60% that remain that in fact will make it to that magical 5-year mark and will continue in business. The principle is actually quite simple. If we put the employees first, then we will have success. It's an elementary concept, I agree. But let me explain it a little bit. When we look at organizations, we think about them in terms of their systems or their departments. We think about human resources systems, IT systems, transportation systems, and the like. But we oftentimes forget that those very systems are simply people coming together in order to operate those departments. So what's also logical is that in order for us to stabilize those departments, we must first stabilize the people. The organizations that do this best and make a full recovery consider first what the employee is thinking and feeling at the time. If, for example, after a major earthquake, an employee returns to work physically, but finds themselves thinking and emoting about their 2 children at home who were witness to the event, having difficulty sleeping, having nightmares and such, it makes sense that the employee is not going to be able to concentrate fully on what it is that they are doing. So, does it not also make sense that an organization that it's in their best interest to make what it is the employee is most concerned about what they should be most concerned about?
Yes, as Bill has talked about, one of the things we've often looked at is organizations that are made up of systems, all the things that are going on in an organization. And we forget that organizations are actually alive. They breathe, they feel. And why is that? Because organizations are made up of people. And after a traumatic incident, people can become frozen in indecision. They're focusing on their emotions, their fears, and that happens to the organization there. And they're also trying to figure out as individuals, what is expected of me? What do my coworkers expect of me? How should I be reacting? Are my reactions going to be looked at differently than somebody else's? So what we have to look at is, how do we make this transition for people? How do we actually make this work for us? A method that we've come up with is what we call the covenant of care. In that covenant, we all agree, the organizations agree, and the individuals agree to share and trust our emotions with other people. We also agree to listen without judgment. When we set up these covenants of care, we have found that organizations are able to make that recovery smoother, the time to recovery is shorter, and it is permanent.
So with this theme in mind, the top 60% of the organizations that we spoke of, those that in fact survive, realize that if the employees and, yes, their families are well cared for, the organization will be well cared for. So the mantra that I would like to leave everyone with, the mantra that we follow in our organization, is if we rebuild the people will rebuild the organization.